diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. Would you like to introduce our newest member?
I think probably the board members that aren't here, probably the ones that haven't met him, but just for everybody's knowledge, this is Inspector Jason Jukes, who started with us last week and halfway through his second week, but I think it's been a very positive and hopefully fulfilling week and a half for you in the role as our new inspector and operations officer for the Nelson Police Department. So, have you had the chance to meet everybody that's in the room now?
Now I have, yes.
Okay, so maybe I'll skip the round table part.
Around the table, okay. And we'll get to know you better as time goes by here. Yeah. I just want to move on to the consent agenda before we have Brenton speak to us. So the consent agenda has the meeting agenda, the minutes, the action list, and then there's some correspondence. The correspondence is from the Independent Investigation Office, and it really doesn't quite relate to us, but it's about body cameras and what we require. And I think we're going to have some in the future, but we don't have them yet, right?
Yeah, we actually have
we purchased
two,
them, yeah.
But again, it's the policy piece, the logistics piece, the managing the data storage and evidence that there's some pretty strict requirements and some pretty if everybody in the department ends up with body cam, I think ends up being a lot of storage issues too. So it's still under development. I think I'm pretty confident saying at some point we're going to be there and going to have them up and running, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point it will become mandatory for police departments in the province, but I'm not sure the timeline of that, but it's certainly going in that direction.
Okay, so just read it now just for information. So if you are in agreement, I would like a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Devin and Jane. All in favor? All right, we welcome Brendan Raby.
Yeah.
Welcome, and you're here to speak to us. I guess you get 5 minutes.
Thank you. I've timed it under 2. So,
all right, great.
So thank you all for having me here. My name is Brenton Raby, and I'm part of a group of people who operate Brandy's Place. Brandy's Place is an all-night coffee shop at the east end of Baker Street at Hendricks. It was started in December to provide a warm, nighttime, free coffee shop. We'll be operating until the spring weather in March, and that it's operated entirely by volunteers. I felt compelled to speak to you today on behalf of our volunteers and for myself, who lives upstairs in the same building. We feel that Brandy's Place has benefited from what I refer to as community-level policing. Our overnight staff feel safe knowing that calling the MPD non-emergency number brings support to help our customers, to de-escalate tense situations, and support us as might be needed. The Nelson Fire Department and BC Ambulance have also been wonderful. The drop-ins from the Nelson police officers during the nighttime helps to establish this space as safe for everyone. We have felt heard when expressing concerns about individuals in crisis or people's whose locations might not be known and we're wondering where they are. The MPD have been wonderful with many people, guiding them to Brandy's Place when there might be no other place for them on a cold night, and sometimes asking people who are causing disturbances at our location to move along. Some of our volunteers and customers have health challenges and suffer profound traumas. NPD officers have shown extraordinary patience and empathy with all of us. Regarding the community safety officer position, I've witnessed the CSO's involvement in an overdose response at Brandy's Place. A life was saved with their help. We feel empowered and heard with our check-ins with the CSO, and we hope that this position continues. So on behalf of Brandy's Place and myself, please accept our thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very nice. It's nice to that you took time to come and see us and to give us a positive feedback.
Yeah, we have debriefs after some events, and it seems almost at every time there's a really great satisfaction and confidence that comes from knowing that non-emergency line exists. So, yeah, so thank you, and I'll scooch away.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for taking the time.
And thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome.
I'm a volunteer.
Yeah, we've always had a time limit on it, and it's made it seem really sustainable, knowing that there is an end, so, and it's weather related.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Again.
That was really nice.
Again.
Yeah, it's nice to have positives.
People just came in, yeah.
Just
Oh, hey.
so you guys missed that.
The introductions again for
Yeah.
Jason.
I'll expand a little bit more this time because I thought we might get to do it. So Jason Jukes is our new inspector and started about a week and a half ago. So I said he's well into his second week here. Came to us from Oak Bay, but we probably don't have enough time to go through all this transfers, but it's quite a resume of places he's been and worked, including the RCMP. Starting in the RCMP Nelson Detachment was his first posting roughly 20 years ago. And did a few postings throughout BC and then promoted out to Alberta, where he was 2IC, but an acting detachment commander for quite some time. And then made his way out to the OPP, which he had some pretty influential roles, particularly within their impaired driving enforcement and drug impaired driving enforcement programs and that out there before making his way back to the West Coast and Central Saanich and Oak Bay departments. And he came to us most recently from Oak Bay, where he was a sergeant there. So said he's been sort of started in Nelson and it's made full circle and come back. And I think you may have missed, he's got two daughters, 14 and 16. Okay. I think you're just about a year staggered behind mine. So anyways, welcome. And Christine, you haven't met yet?
No, I haven't. Hi, Christine.
Hi.
And Matt.
Hi, Matt. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
And they're relatively new to the board so this year. So it's been great to have them. Great additions to the board, and Jason's a great addition to the department. So,
Thanks. Thanks, Chief.
Right. Moving right along. Do you want to have anything to say about the presentation? We want to
Surprise.
add to it? It's really nice.
Hearing nice things.
Nice to have positive feedback for a change. And I live right across, like I get to watch them. Like I know when Brandy's place is open, when it's closed. And I certainly have seen a lot of police and ambulance action. So it's kind of nice to know that they appreciate it.
Yeah, it is. It's very nice to hear.
I still get numerous letters from the residents that live in the area about concerns and when perhaps the city might be closing it down, so.
Oh, I'm not one of those. Like, I think it's fine to have it there.
Oh, no, I didn't say that you said Lena.
Oh,
I said, as a mayor, I received multiple
Yes.
letters
Is that right?
of concern from the residents
Like
in the area.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, are they related? Well, never
Well,
mind.
I-
Noise, and various other things.
Noise,
Yeah.
Well, the noise has happened all the time. I've lived there, like I've lived there for 8.5 years, mostly from Finley's when the bars are closing. And so for me, like, I don't know the difference. Like
Yeah.
it when you live right downtown, like those are city noises that you'll hear. But I like the coffee shop idea though. Like I can see what's going on and they're all there, they're warm, they have a place, safe
We
place
just have
to
to
be.
find that balance of managing, everybody's
Yes.
peace and
of
enjoyment
course,
of the property
of
stuff,
course,
but
yeah.
it's,
Yeah,
it
and
certainly benefits to that being available for people at times.
yes,
To some of the alternatives that are around, but again, we have to have the expectations on them that there are other people in the neighborhood too, so.
totally, yes. And noise is a concern. But I live there, so I'm just giving you my
Yeah.
feedback.
No,
Yes, there is noise, but it's just like, before I moved there, we lived in 75 acres of forest land in this beautiful home. Like we can't have that kind of quiet when you live in the middle of town. So we had to get used to it, but. And it is nice to hear, like I didn't know what was going on, and there's all these rumors now. I know exactly what's happening. Like I didn't know, I thought it was being rented and the owner of the place did not have anything to do with it, but he does, right? Like, so that's kind of nice to know. Anyway, well, we can carry on with the meeting. A business arising is your report, Chief. You have a long report and I just wondered if you could, we've all read them, but it's kind of nice for you to go over it.
The open one isn't too long, but yeah, so just quickly, the BC Association of Municipal Chiefs of Police and BC Association of Chiefs of Police, there's been no actual overarching meetings since the last update, but I've had several committee meetings, including I'm on the mental health and addictions. The main sort of development that I've reported on before is the rollout of Health IM. I actually had a meeting with the interior representatives from Interior Health last week as well to discuss a few issues and police wait times at hospitals. So we're kind of working constructively on addressing some of those issues, but we had a discussion on Health IM as well. And hopefully that should speed up some of the intake and examination process when we do have to take people to the hospital. And it's also a good screening tool where we should see a decline in the number of people that are apprehended, in particular under the Mental Health Act, and taken to the hospital. So, you know, that might be somewhat mitigate the problem of the wait times at the hospital if we're not there as often.
Excuse me. What's Health IM? I'm not familiar with the acronym.
Health IM is basically an app that the officers can all add on their phone, and it's just to kind of briefly describe it, it's a bit of an interactive platform where there's a number of prompts and questions and observations the officers can enter into the system, and it, you know, it'll adjust to how you answer the questions to what the next questions are, but it gives the officers, I guess, some confidence in directing them as to what the best in the given circumstances and the symptoms that are being given and stuff, what's the best action to be taken by the officers. And I think, you know, over the years, just because of liabilities and risks and some people not being apprehended and then suffering harm either by themselves or somebody else later, and then police being criticized, I think there's been a natural progression that if it's unclear whether they're need of mental health or other crisis intervention, the default action is to arrest under the Mental Health Act and take to the hospital. Places where this has been rolled out, they've seen a significant decrease in the number of apprehensions that occur, and we haven't got the rollout or had the actual training in the platform itself quite yet. So I don't know all of the features, but certainly a lot of positive feedback about it from places that it has been used. I don't know if you've had any experience with it.
Great, thank you.
I think it's a tool that officers can use with the lack of mental health people available at odd hours, right? Like,
and that's the challenge. You're making a decision at 2 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night when the resources aren't there. The other thing I forgot to mention is there's an interface with the hospital that once the recommendation is to apprehend and take the hospital, it's supposed to send basically a heads up with the details and stuff to the hospital and the emergency room reception area where they should get it and be somewhat prepared ahead of time. Now, we may not see quite as big an impact on the wait times from that respect, in that it's, for most places in town, it's a 3 to 5 minute drive to the hospital, whereas the bigger centers, it may be 20 minutes or half an hour to get to the hospital. So everything should be in place and kind of ready to receive them and do hopefully a sooner assessment of them and determine what's going to happen with them at that point, thus freeing officers up. But every 5 minutes helps. So hopefully it's rolled out soon. It's been a long time coming, and I think they're pretty close. Apparently, for the meeting I had, the committee said that actually the technical people, sorry, drawing a blank, do the computers.
IT.
Oh, thank you. I kept saying IR, and it's like, it's not IR. So the IT for the IM. The IT for the IM is all set up and ready to go. So it's just a phase now of getting the app installed, training done, and getting Interior Health the training and the awareness of it on their end. So,
Thank you.
you know, I'm hoping by spring, but definitely before summer, it'd be nice to have that in place and working. I've had my cybercrime committee that I'm the chair of. Nothing significant to update there, but sort of drawing out of that was the cybercrime conference and workshop committee, which is kind of a subcommittee. But one of the things that was recognized by the cybercrime committee and talking to the other chiefs about it was just issues around capacity, skills, and knowledge of investigators on where to even start investigating cybercrime complaints. Departments, I think, are finding it fairly overwhelming, just the number of, fortunately, not good if you're the victim, but fortunately there are a lot of small, low dollar sort of frauds and complaints and ransomwares at this point, but it continues to grow and the victimization continues to grow. So if we don't get on top of it and start having, building that capacity to investigate those kinds of things, I think we're already, a bit far behind. So this is a positive move to put on a training conference for. We're still determining the target audience, but I think everybody's in agreement that it's likely that sort of first line novice responder who are going to deal with a lot of complaints, and just knowing that, what evidence and you need to preserve when you get there, what evidence you need and questions to ask when you have a complaint, and the next steps so that you can either mitigate it, start the investigation successfully, have it set up that if it does need to go to a specialized unit to investigate, you've at least done the steps to preserve the evidence that there is and hopefully set it up for a successful investigation. But again, this is kind of in the planning stages for late fall 2025. Just had a quick comment on the community safety officer. So as Brenton has mentioned, she continues to do a lot of great work. She seems to have the ability somehow to be everywhere in the community. So, we just get feedback that she's out there all the time and having a very positive influence on the community. And I think giving a very positive reflection of the department as a whole. Again, just had citizens again stop by to express appreciation for the work the CSO is doing. And reading. This is last week's report.
It's in there. It's really good.
Okay. I even flagged that. Well, there. Now you got a recap of the minutes from last week. The other thing I want to comment on the CSO was just we reported, I can't remember if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, we'd sent her to Vancouver Police Department to do some media training. That is paying off, I would say, in spades right now. Like, she's been doing that weekly media release, is kind of a summary of the department's files and activities, and getting a lot of good feedback on that. And actually yesterday, Tyler Harper from the Nelson Star sent a very positive email just thanking the department and thanking the CSO for getting those media summaries out there. And the paper, it sounds like it's got a lot of good feedback and interest and appreciation for us reporting that. And then we've had a couple of one-off incidents that, again, we're scrambling, trying to have resources to go and manage the scene and the situation. And I've been able to fire her just sort of the Cole's notes of what's happening, and ask her to put a news release together. And she's done a very good job of, the odd time just needs a little bit of tweaking, but she's doing a really good job of getting those put together quickly and getting them out the door. Victim services, they continue to stay quite busy. They've got a couple of really good initiatives on the go right now. This neighbor, friends, family, and co-workers, and there'll be more to come on that, kind of doing a media release and updates on it in April is the plan. But it's an initiative around identifying and supporting victims of interpersonal violence, so domestic violence. I had a chance to see in conjunction with Western University, created a video. It's about a 20-minute to half an hour video just for awareness and explanation of the program. And steps for people to do if they think they're seeing some of the flags of potential domestic violence or partner violence. So I think, unfortunately, this is a real issue right across the whole country. So we can't pretend that it's not an issue here as well. And we do certainly see our share of interpartner violence files and investigations. So I think awareness is the key. Hopefully early intervention and support for victims, that they do have somewhere to come forward and someone to support them. The other initiative, and I think at some point in the next meeting or two, I wouldn't mind having victim services come in and present on this, but they started a break and enter and property crimes initiative. Victim services has traditionally been involved in persons crimes, so where people are victims of acts of violence against them. But as we know, property crime is fairly prevalent in the community, and we're starting to see a lot of ill effects on people who have been victims of break and enters, property thefts, vehicle break-ins, vehicle thefts, and things like that. And victim services started an initiative on that. So there's sort of 2 or 3 layers to it, and the first obviously being the crime prevention and knowledge around break and enters and preventative steps that people can take to hopefully not become victims of property crime. So I think that was a really good area, and they've got some really nice placards and pamphlets and different type of information documents available to fan out to people. Then they sort of progress into the role of, if you do become a victim, what services, if there is some programs out there where you can get some funding either for like cameras and property design that helps to mitigate the risk of becoming a victim again. Support for that emotional piece that when you become a victim of property crime. So again, I think it's, there's a lot of different facets that they put into this. I think they've done a really good job. And as I said, I think it might be good once they kind of got the final package put together, if they may come and have a presentation here. And I think they're going to roll it out at one of the chambers meetings and hopefully some other media outlets, just so people in the community are aware of it. And the final thing for this is just on the restorative justice front. As you know, just with the departure of the last director of the restorative justice program, it's been in a little bit of a state of flux. We're kind of running a pilot project where victim services, just with 3 of them in there now, they have the capacity to look at taking on the restorative justice role. Again, it's been underway for a little while now, and I think it seems to be picking up steam and coming together nicely. There is a bit of a natural, I guess, synergy between victim services and restorative justice. So, victim services has that place and ability already to have knowledge of a number of the files that potentially are good referrals to the restorative justice program. So it's kind of a nice, blend into the 2 programs. They're still going to be separate, but they do have a lot of overlapping pieces. And I think it might be, it might turn out to be a more efficient way to run it and may get better results, better referrals, and they can, they've kind of got coverage of the whole scenario of things, the victim services piece for the victim, but then assisting them and encouraging the restorative justice program and process for the offender as well. So we'll see, we'll continue to update on that. But as I said, in the short term, we've been experimenting with this. It seems like it's starting off well.
Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry.
No, I'm just playing with my.
I have a question. So maybe I'll start with you mentioned there's going to be a presentation about how to prevent property crime. Is there going to be any presentations related to intimate partner violence initiative? Or you mentioned that video, like is there an opportunity for people to see that or?
Yes, there's, sorry, what's the correct title for the week in April?
It's violence against women.
Yeah, so And I think it's a good idea, like they're just cleaning up the presentation and stuff now. I think it's pretty much ready to go, but figured that's a good week to roll out the program. So
Okay.
there'll be a number of presentations. There's a number of initiatives the department already does around that week. So we'll probably try and include that in there. I think they also want to target like the Chamber of Commerce and the businesses, and that's why it was originally called Neighbors, Friends, and Family, but they've expanded it to Neighbor, Friends, and Family, or Neighbors, Friends, Family, and Coworkers, because they said, you know, who do you interact with the most in a day, and you see that person pretty much every day, so you'll maybe be more aware of changes in their personality or some of the other red flags and stuff. So, excuse me. So I don't know exactly all of the other avenues they're going to do as far as the media and that goes, but there certainly is, we're planning on trying to have it a reasonably big rollout, and may try to even reach out, we're spitballing things a bit, but reach out to like Global News and a few places just to get the word out provincially, because I do think they've done a really good job on this video. But you know, we don't have to isolate it to Nelson. People in Vancouver could watch it. So I think I just see that it potentially could be a provincial-wide program if we, you know, get the word out
I'd
about
be
it.
interested in hearing more about the program too, because having worked on those issues, sometimes you can put people in danger thinking you're helping them. Right? Like,
Yeah, but I think this is good. It does kind of lay out it's not your place to go and report it, like you're
working with the person, or even identifying that they may need a friend, or
and offering them somebody to listen to and the support. But I think you truly have to encourage the victim to be the one to come forward. So.
Right.
So related to victim services, you mentioned there's a focus also on property crimes and supporting victims of property crime. And traditionally, they've been focused on people crimes. I don't know what you call them, but
Persons crimes.
Persons crimes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Is that a concern in terms of resources? Like, are there adequate resources to do both well?
I think there is.
Okay.
But obviously, the persons crimes are still a priority.
Okay.
For them. So, there's a lot of the information they put together, and they can explain it better. That even if you're a victim of property crime, they can just mail them the information and stuff, or email it to them if they want it that way. So it's not overly time burdensome for a lot of the things that they're willing to do on the property crime side of things.
Yeah,
but I think it's just awareness of some of the support that they can get that's available for them.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, although it's not crime against you as a person, there's an emotional impact.
Oh, for sure. I just want to make sure that the person crimes
are not.
We're not.
Less of a priority.
Less of a priority. Sorry, and I have one more question.
Yeah.
You mentioned the initiatives with IM and the conversations with Interior Health. Can you comment any more specifically on any initiatives that will reduce the time our officers spend at Kootenay Lake Hospital? Because that seems to be substantial drain on our resources.
Yeah.
Like other than IM?
There is things underway. I just because they're preliminary, it might be better for the closed meeting, just because I don't want to speak on behalf of Interior Health. But we did have, that was kind of what the meeting was about last week that I had with them.
Yeah.
So, they do seem, I would say, engaged and interested in trying to help us reduce the wait times too. And they've made a few suggestions, so we just got to put those into play.
And just so you know, Jane, in my conversations with Interior Health, because I meet with them as well, as I've highlighted as a priority, is that the hospital needs to engage in their own security as well.
Okay.
And that's one of the things
I'm
I
happy
talked
to hear
them
that.
about,
Thank
too.
you.
Yeah. And they gave me a litany of reasons why that doesn't really work. But I said, we've been asking for a long time, and this is increasing across the province in small hospitals, not just big hospitals. And the majority of hospitals have security on site.
Great point. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions for the chief? Okay, can I have a motion then to receive and accept the constable's, chief constable's report? Jane, Debbie, all in favor? All right, item number 6, the director's report. 6A is the BC Association board. I sit on the board, so just that there is a meeting. The next meeting is on Friday. We meet every other month. Just a reminder that at the next AGM, Eric, you are my substitute, right? So when we are at the AGM, at the conference, if you could attend that meeting, then I can introduce you to them. And I'll stay on till I'm done, but then, you just transition smoothly. That's important. And also just a heads up that we are we have been asked for input into policies that we're coming up with the changes to the Police Act. And I wasn't able to attend the first meeting, and the board had presented a written sort of feedback on each policy, and a lot of us weren't there, and we didn't quite agree with with what had been presented. So we mentioned that at the last meeting, and we now have 2 meetings coming up with the people from the ministry, so we can give our feedback. So
Great.
I'll be able to do that starting at the meeting tomorrow on Friday. All right. So that's it for me. Any other people with the reports? Director's report?
I could speak to the EDI committee meeting, but it's at the end of this, so
That's coming.
yeah, I can talk. That's
Yeah.
the only thing that I have to.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you to speak to that when we come to that. The conference registration, I think Shiloh needs to know. So if we can say who's going to be attending. Are you going to be able to go to the conference, Christine? It's in May. Well, you can get back to Shiloh.
Yeah, what's the deadline, Shiloh?
I need to by 15th February, yes.
Okay, let me just double check again my work calendar.
Because she has to not only register us, and then you also have to do travel arrangements.
Okay,
You got everybody's names who had their hands up just now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
so, and how many, we don't have a limit on how many people
We
from
can
the
all
board
go.
go?
Yeah,
For the BC one, we send
BC one,
everybody.
Oh, we do normally send it. Okay, thank you for
Canadian
letting
one,
me.
We
Yeah.
typically send 1 or 2 people, but the BC, we send everyone.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there wasn't
Yeah,
a
and-
capacity limit. Thank you.
having been on the board for 5 years, it is the one opportunity you have to get to know your fellow
Yeah.
board members. And it's also, you learn a lot from these conferences.
Absolutely.
So, if you can make it, that would be great.
Okay.
The next item is the conference sponsorship. And so Shiloh, if you remind us what we've done in the past.
In the past, we've done the coffee break,
Yeah.
which is around $5.50, $5.75. That's typically what we would sponsor.
Yeah.
Based on our,
Yeah, so if people, that's within our budget and it's something we've always done. So if people are in agreement, then we can pass the motion to,
To move that.
okay. Seconds it. All in favor?
So you got a promotion here.
Hmm? What's that?
In this letter, dear Mayor Horsfeld.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Someone hasn't
All
chosen
right.
the template.
Now you're on, Devon. It's equity, diversity, and inclusion.
one thing first.
Yeah.
Resolutions. So if the board has any resolutions they want to put forward to the
Right, that's
BCAPB,
right, yes.
get until March 15th.
Yes, I think you got the information about resolutions and how they're done and everything. And so if you have any resolutions, this is the time.
We can bring it forward. We have one more board meeting
Yeah.
where you guys can discuss it, but you should be thinking about the BCAPB.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
All right.
So EDI committee meeting was last week, the week before, I don't know, it all blurs together in January especially. Really great meeting. There's a new person who's joined us from the BC, from the Teachers Association.
She's the president of the BC Teachers.
Thank you.
For Nelson.
So that was really nice. So we discussed, so Barbara's, okay, where do I start? So, I just came on the EDI committee in the fall, so I hadn't been there for a lot, and there was a lot of discussion around, Barb Vincent has been working on basically a manual for police officers that would touch on a lot of different subjects. So from around EDI stuff. So people from people who are Jewish or Hindu or Sikh or Muslim or Christian or part of the LGBTQ community. And so that's been going really quite slowly. She's been working really hard on it, but it's, not a fast process because it's about, finding these communities and working with them to get through. And we discussed at the last meeting that we find that like the meetings tend to be Barb telling us all the stuff she's been doing and us listening to Barb tell us all the stuff she's been doing. Not really a lot of action. And so, the questions come up like, what exactly is it that we're meeting for? And so there is a terms of reference for the committee. I don't, top of my head, I can't remember what the mission statement is, but we will be meeting at our next, in March 6th. The committee will be meeting and we're actually going to take the terms of reference and work on some strategic planning for the committee because there is actually an interest. We have people from like Nelson Cares and Anchors and all of these community groups who we'll be talking about like actions the committee can be doing as opposed to just coming and hearing all the things that Barb has been doing. And then, and it's a lot, right? Like she's taken on a huge role. So actually creating a strategic plan with some goals and some actions at our next meeting so that there's, it's not just a bunch of really busy people getting together every 2 months to listen to what Barb has to say about what she's been doing around EDI stuff for the police department and actually putting the committee to work. So, yeah.
So a question, because the police board, we do have a strategic plan.
Yeah.
So in my world, I would think that that strategic plan is what is the overarching document in relation to a committee to the extent that there's an overarching concept, and maybe the committee might refine like some specifics that flow from the general. So I just, in my mind, I don't see a committee as having a strategic plan. I see a committee as implementing and executing with particulars from an existing strategic plan that the board has already done. So I just want to maybe align.
Can I just jump in?
Sorry.
Yeah, because Devin's really new.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
and
I
he's
didn't mean
doing his
to.
best, but I was one of the founding members of that committee.
Yeah, I understand.
And so it's not as, we're calling it a strategic plan, but what it is, as Devin described, when we got together, we spent a lot of money coming up with the terms of reference for that committee.
Mhm.
But since then, we haven't moved forward. It's not just Bob talking, there's me. I talk a lot at that meeting, and so does a couple of other members, and we're just preaching to each other. It's time for the committee, for all of us as members, to start doing something. So what we're having actually is like a 4-hour meeting, and I'm going to be co-facilitating with Bob because nobody else has stepped up. We were hoping somebody would step up to that meeting. Nobody has, and so I'm meeting with Shiloh and Bob, and we'll come up with something. But yes, not calling it a strategic plan, it's a planning session, and we're going to actually come up with concrete steps of 2 maybe things we can do. One could be the launching of the strategic plan, having a public gathering, whatever, as an idea, right? But it's basically to get this group to start acting, because we're just tired. We're going to lose our members if we don't do anything. And also like that document that Devin referred to, that was something that the deputy chief had brought like as a sample from Ontario. So Bob actually had a booklet to work with, and then we've all volunteered to make it more like Nelson centric, more appropriate. So she's working on that. So that's just a side thing. But as a committee, we need to start functioning, doing something. So we get a reminder of ourselves, of the history, and then the terms and vision, and then come up with some plans.
Yeah, thank you. And I didn't mean it as a negative. I just wanted to make sure that from a strategic plan, that's the governing document, and the committee work
Exactly,
flows
yes.
from that. So it just needs to align. That
Yeah.
was really my only.
Yeah, when I was asked too, the same thing, I wasn't at the meeting, and that's why they got things done. Less talking, action happening. And so the two people who are like, yeah, we are guilty of that, taking over. So it was good that they came up with this plan, and then same thing with the strategy, like I've never run a strategy, I attended strategic plan meetings, but I've never facilitated one, so I don't want to call it strategic planning. It's just a planning day. Thank you, Devin, like being the newest person and having to give the.
Hey, it's okay. We only learn by doing
Yeah.
and saying the wrong thing. So it's fine.
All right, any other questions? That's just for information. So new business, strategic plan, I think that Shiloh had a document. Did you have a?
I did end up adding it to the agenda,
Yeah.
for some review, just your feedback, comments, if this is sort of the idea you want for the chief to use to report back to the board.
So have you had a chance to look at the?
Oh, that's what this is.
Yeah.
I was a bit confused.
Yeah, I mean, I like I like the idea, like where you have the strategic plans that I've worked with actually present like this, and then you can see when the action is done, and then you can do an evaluation, right? Like it's all together. So I think, Shiloh, I don't want to speak for you, but you used the strategic plan, and using that, you came up with this framework, right?
Yeah.
So it's really up to the chief, I think, to see if that works for the chief as a document, right?
This looks great from my perspective. I guess the one question that I have, just because I'm used to seeing things structured either quarterly or annually in terms of outcomes, because obviously you might have an overall objective for 2029 outcome, but the steps that you need to get there are like mini bites towards that over time. So I'm just wondering, and I don't feel strongly, but it's just a question, if there is, any benefit, you just have one column for timeline, but actually to structure it on an annual or, annual quarterly basis, so that you say, in the first year, we want to do this, second year, this, third year, that, blah, 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 so that by the time you get to the fifth year, your path is clearly structured, but that's just a comment for consideration.
Yeah, this is just, you are looking for feedback, right?
Yes.
So beyond the timeline category there, is that what?
Yeah, just to expand the timeline section.
And that was the only thing I was kind of thinking too, although I just didn't have a real suggestion of how to change the layout, but some things you're going to be able to address and possibly wrap up in a year or two, where other things, like you said, might take 5 years. So that's all I was thinking, was maybe this just becomes a quarterly document you update every quarter, or we can redesign the layout of it so that there's the option to keep expanding outputs and timeline inputs into the document.
So I just have a question kind of about how this document get used. I've never seen anything like, so this is, for each direction, there's the 3 points, and then under each point, under employee supports, you would report like what you've been doing, and it'll be different every quarter, or so maybe you could just give me like an example of like what the first line will look like, just because I just don't know.
Well, and that's also kind of under development, I guess, but to your point, was employee supports could fall into a number of different categories. That could be mental health and wellness initiatives, that could be, there's knowledge, skills, and abilities, their career support for development to, if they have interest in promotion or specific, we have limited specialty sections here, but I mean, that would be something in a bigger department you would look at, like if somebody wants to go into that stream of major crimes or drug interdiction or drug investigation, things like that. So again, it's, on the fly to say, specifically what it'll be right now is going to be difficult, but I would say that, in your target outputs, that's where you would put like some kind of mental health initiatives and things that,
Okay.
or different training programs. And if you have somebody who's, like off the top of my head, think of a couple people that I think are pretty new, but they are showing a really good inclination towards the detectives positions, but that's probably 2 to 3 years out. So, you could put some of those initiatives into sort of, focusing on developing and enhancing the special investigations, the general investigation section for the department, and then sort of steps you're taking to do that.
Okay, and then that's where the timeline stuff would come in?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
kind of think the same thing with the leadership, like we've already done a few initiatives, like bringing back the corporal rank just for that, so people aren't going from being constables to sergeants probably before they're ready, but never having that opportunity to be in frontline supervisory roles. So, that's something we've brought in with the goal of mentoring those people, giving them some leadership opportunities, but also we'll look at this coming year. Jason sent out the GIBC's sort of training catalog, if I can call it that, for the year,
Okay.
to identify courses that maybe people have either an interest or an aptitude in, or fits in with sort of the department's succession planning for the next 5 years, and get them on. And a number of those courses are sort of progressive too. So, you might get one course this year, but that's what the idea of, there's a follow-up course next year or in 6 months or something.
Okay.
Once you've completed this and done a practicum, then you go on the next level of training or something.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, and Charlotte, are you going to add an evaluation piece? Like, remember we were talking about when you and I met, when I looked at it quickly, I said, like, when you have a document like this, you also want to evaluate how you're doing.
Yeah, so that actually popped into my head. Is I was curious whether, like, to me, you need to have like SMART objectives. I don't know if that's what you guys normally would use, but
Yes.
but if you're doing that, then that assists in the evaluation part, because, for instance, if you say, in year one, we are going to identify 2 officers for detective position. Like, that could be your year one goal. You do that. Next year, you are going to implement XYZ training to, so you basically structure it that way. And anyways, if to the extent that is how we would identify activities, is using a SMART approach, then I think that would help with evaluation. And I don't know if that's in there, but I just also noticed that on the lead, maybe you also want to include committees. Like, I don't know if partners includes committees, Chief, but that might be a consideration as well.
Mhm.
Anyways, those are all my comments.
And I would say definitely that would include committees. Like, there's some of the categories where the EDI committee would have a
Would be in
role
there,
in.
yeah.
And I kind of wonder too, with the last column, critical success factors and potential barriers. Now, is that the place to identify? Well, I would see it as both. You could identify the ones you can, you may be able to be aware of or identify ahead of time so that you can deal with them. But I think that's an appropriate place too to put issues that weren't expected that came up, but may have hindered progress in one of your outcomes, like staffing shortages or something may make it possible to send somebody on training courses and things. So, it's just got to be dynamic where you can show, what your plan goals and outcomes are, but also have the ability to adjust it when you have unforeseen circumstances come up.
Yeah, the evaluations, that doesn't mean it has to be a success. Like, sometimes it's not, and there are reasons. So it's like an analysis that goes in, right? Because the plan is just a plan, and then what you do sometimes looks very different from the plan. And then you just identify the reasons why. But-
Sorry, is there an identified review period? Because it is an iterative document. So is this something you review quarterly, or like what would be the frequency of review?
Well, when when I was meeting with Shiloh and she, like Shiloh took the trouble to do this and like it's a tool that would be good, I think, for the boards to be updated. So we have to decide whether we want it,
Okay.
every year or 4 times a year, twice a year. But it's one, because otherwise the strategic plan, like we've had strategic plan, we've never actually talked about it here. Maybe when they're evaluating the chief that's used, right? Like it's not, this would be a more active way where the board is kept informed.
I love strategic plans, so
Yeah.
yes, I
You
love
have
to
if you
hear
use
about
it
them.
appropriately. Right? Yeah, so this is just something that brilliantly Shiloh came up with the idea to provide us with a tool that's a lot easier to handle than this whole big document that you're looking at. So yeah, look at it and like give her feedback because it's a fluid form, right? It's just a draft right now. And we can always update it and change it over time.
And that was going to be my suggestion too. I think Shiloh did a great job of getting a good base to work from. And then because, I've seen different ones and I've never seen one that I would say was perfect. There's always things you could tweak or add or change. So anybody who has suggestions are more than welcome.
Well, thank you, Shiloh, for that. All right, so if we're done with that, we move along to new business. Well, one thing I did want to ask about the strategic plan before we move from that is, are we having a launch of any kind for the community? Like, when are we? We talked about it at the board meeting, but we may come up with it at the EDI committee planning, and that could be the launch. I don't know.
I know there
It's
was
just something on my mind that we want to let the community know that we have a new plan, right?
to come up.
That, and we also talked about having a open house.
Like
or
a town
whatever.
house,
With-
town hall.
Town hall with the members. of
Yeah.
PD,
That's what. Yeah.
but two separate things, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see, you don't want to overdo it, but, it have to be limited to one public event. Like
No, that's right, exactly.
I think there could be, in conjunction with some other things we have on the go, have a booth at the markets and stuff again when they start up in the summer and the spring.
And have the plans available there to share.
And then that was kind of the stuff we were talking about with the EDI committee too, was like actually being visible in the
Mhm.
community as a committee.
Yeah.
So,
Because I think it'd be, I would almost, again, I'm open to any suggestions and I'm not trying to take over this, but it just, we could have an established sort of booth at the market, but I would say almost rotating the theme of that week to all of these different initiatives the department has going on.
That's a great idea.
Because I think, there's a lot of the same people attend the markets, they're
Mhm.
regular goers. So if you had the same thing every week after about
It
the
is.
second time of seeing you, that's probably not going to come back. But if you
Right.
changed it every week and had something new the department's working on, or could even have two things on at a week, and the CSO always goes down to that. So
Mhm.
she has things she's working on that can be part of that, and the strategic plan could be part of that. Some of the EDI committee work could be part of it another
Yeah.
week. And
I like that.
yeah, it was sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I'm curious though, like I've heard that there's been a plan to do a public forum thing and meeting with the members,
Mhm.
but who's responsible for taking those steps to maybe make a recommendation to the board, or is this something that sits with the chief only? Like, is this a board thing or is this purely operational? I guess I'm a little confused.
I would say it's a board thing. We would work with the chief, right?
Okay, but who's
Something-
accountable within our board to do this? That's my question, because I think it's a really good and important idea, but someone needs to be accountable to follow up, is my
Right.
suggestion.
Well, there's two different ideas there, right? So I think we need to nail down who would be accountable to follow out for each of them. But the public one,
Mhm.
which if we already have a CSO going, there might be a way to partner with a board member to go or something like that, but somebody needs to be on that and then somebody else needs to be on
Yeah.
making it happen with the
Mhm.
town
I
hall.
just remember it coming up at the board meeting,
Yeah,
and
no.
you're right, it comes up and then
We don't,
then we don't do anything
Yeah.
about it. So maybe it's something that Chief, do you want to give it a bit more thought as well and come back to it? Like, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but we wouldn't do anything without the chief's.
No,
Yeah.
but shouldn't we appoint a board person or two board persons
do
to
that.
work with the chief for each of those items?
Absolutely.
And that would be my suggestion. Just to make sure
So
that
you're
it actually is
volunteering?
actionable.
Are you volunteering, Christine?
Uh,
Okay.
Sure. I can do one of them. I'm not sure which I would be more appropriate to be involved in. So if anyone else is interested in one of those, I would be happy to take the other.
I mean, the HR committee has been almost like a full-time job in the past couple of months, so I'm not volunteering for anything else at the moment.
I was thinking that.
And, and for me, like, I'm excited about the EDI, the committee and like what we're planning. So I want to focus on what we do as a committee. That's where I'm going to put my energy.
I'd be willing to help organize either the open house or some sort of staff engagement event. I think, I'd be willing to help with either one of those. So,
Okay. Well, I can do the staff one if you want to do
yeah,
the public one.
I feel totally comfortable with that.
Okay.
I'm pretty good at hosting public events. I've done that for the last few years, so.
Okay, well, we'll
Yeah.
follow up with you individually on each of those items.
Okay.
Talking about board involvement, the next one is the board committees, and Shiloh again has attached all the terms of reference for the various committees. And we're just wanting to know if there's the new members, like have you put your names forward for any committees?
I see a TBD in there, so I think it's time.
You can't sit around and say we're new, we
Yeah,
got to
no.
step up because the two old ones are going to be moving on, and you know, so people have to jump in.
Yeah, I suggest governance, but is that on here? No, that's not on.
Governance
Okay.
should be,
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
The
it is.
third one.
Oh, sorry, but I didn't see that there's a need for, I'm just saying that it's a full committee.
It only has Devin and I at the moment, and I'll be moving on. So it's a very important committee, the governance. They're all important, but finance, Eric is the accountant.
I would love to work with you on that.
Do we just let Shiloh know, or are you
Yeah,
trying to
you don't
figure
even
this
have
out
to-
now?
Yeah, you don't have to
Okay,
just
thank you.
take it home, but, read the terms of reference, see where, it has to be a fit with your skills, right? So just take your time and then let Shiloh know. All right, and while we're talking about that, I just want to talk about potential board members. Shiloh recently shared information from Katie, and I've already, sent a copy to Coins, like I've asked, because we're still looking for an actual person, right?
Yeah.
And just to see what they can do, and I think Shiloh also sent it to the West Kootenai People for Racial Justice. So again, I'm appealing to all of us members to just make sure you publicize it within your
Circles.
circles.
Send it to like Chelsea and Intercultural Communities.
That's the only way things are going to change. We're going to change it up because the way we do it, we're not attracting the diversity that we're looking for. And so we all have to do our share to try and make that happen.
On the committee, I stepped onto the finance committee because we were really short of members, but we're no longer, and I'd like to come off of that committee. And I would also say to people like, if, for example, you're thinking about getting on one of the committees that Lena and I belong to, now would be the time because we could have some overlap with Lena or I
Yeah, that's true.
to do a little bit of mentoring because we are both done in July, so.
Do the committees meet on a regular schedule? Sorry if I've overlooked that.
I think we have a schedule that,
Oh, you do have schedule. Okay,
Yeah.
thank
yeah.
you.
And, Shiloh is very good about reminding us when it comes up. But we know, it's not onerous, but it can be, when there's work to be done.
There's a shallow question. Just looking at this, I know we talked about the accommodation awards committee about scheduling meeting of that committee soon, because we do have, on a positive note, a lot of deserving people that probably should be recognized for things that.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Haven't scheduled it yet.
So
I can volunteer on that. Well, oh,
This is volunteering.
that's fine. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. You can go. I don't care.
Yeah, but I should be able to handle that. Just congratulating people, right?
Not
Well, you
quite.
need to sit and decide who deserves it.
you have
and
to, you have to
the
carve
chief
and
will help
engrave
you.
the plaques by hand. They're all-
So the way I see it, we need like immediate people to volunteer on the board governance, HR committees, right? Because they'll be soon down to one.
I would actually be interested, this human resources process has been really interesting. And if nobody else is interested, I would actually be interested in
HR?
HR. Yeah, it's been a really fascinating couple of weeks with the interview process. So yeah, it's been really interesting. So
Okay. I think
but
that,
someone else can hop on there too. There'll be three of us.
well, hopefully we'll have new members coming on, right? They're replacing us. So that'll be-
Hopefully the HR committee gets to have a break for a while after.
Are we close?
Yeah.
Okay, if that's all we have, I'd like to move that we adjourn this meeting and that the next meeting will be on March the 5th. Second, all in favor? All right, give a little break. Before we go into in camera.